Game over, man. Game over.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Welcome to this podcast review for November 24th, 2025. And I'm JD Duran, and I am co-hostless for this episode. Brendan saw Wicked last year and decided that is enough for me. I am not going back. Actually, that is a lie. He had a family emergency over the weekend. He could not make it to the theater. However, I am joined by arguably the biggest Wicked fan on the planet. I know a lot of people are aiming for that title, but I think she very much is in the running. Our very own Erica Richards is back. Erica, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. I think the only person who loves Wicked more than me is Ariana Grande herself. So I think I'm pretty close, but I think she will take the reins for biggest Wicked fan in the world, which I will rightly give to her, because I truly think the only person that loves it more than I do is Ariana Grande. So
yeah, she has certainly made her fandom known for sure. And it is, it's pretty severe, your fandom, when you essentially bully your way into being in the movie itself. You're like, honestly, I am going to do this role. You cannot stop me.
Honestly, respect. And you know what? Figure out what you want and go for it. And that's what she's done. Sorry, everyone. I'm a little under the weather today. But she knew what she wanted and she went after it. And honestly, I feel, again, as a Wicked super fan, which we will get into this, that I'm really grateful that Ariana was such a big part of making this film happen, because she made sure, just like the rest of the cast and crew, that there was so much care and like concentration on the story of Wicked that was put into these films. So I know this one has been a little bit more controversial, and I'm sure we'll get into that. People have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts. You have a lot of thoughts. Yeah. But if we'll say one thing, I will say that I think the Wicked super fans have been happy through this whole process. Yeah. And what am I going to do next year when there's no Wicked press tour? Like, I just don't even know what I'm going to do.
Or maybe there will be. There's lots of talk about a Wicked 3 somehow.
And you know what? Okay, so I'm not sure how I feel about this, but I also was not sure how I felt about Wicked becoming a movie when that was announced. But I have high hopes and high expectations, and I'm going to be positive. But if you know, like, the Wicked story, like the books, there are multiple books. It's not just the Wicked book. Yeah. So there's like Son of a Witch and stuff. But then I just saw on Instagram that the author of the book, oh gosh, I just lost his name. Oh gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Mark something. Anyways, that he's gonna write a Glinda prequel. So
okay,
we'll see. Not sure.
Yeah, I mean, money talks. This movie's making money, and if there's anything we know to be objectively true about this era of Hollywood, they will absolutely, without question, stranglehold an IP and squeeze every ounce out of that juice.
I know,
so
and that's what I'm
I would be shocked if they don't expand this.
I'm afraid. Just leave it. I'm afraid, JD.
They are unequivocally going to do something else. 100%. Until it stops making money.
Yeah.
Just prepare yourself for more Oz. That's all I'm saying.
I'm scared. Okay.
All right. So as we vary into this, it's worth repeating. Erica joined us last year for our Wicked conversation. And in that review, in that conversation, you talked about how you saw the stage play how many times? Dozens of times.
I've seen it 7 times now.
7 times. That's a lot of times. That's way
Yeah,
more than me.
it is a lot of times. And it's coming to Baltimore again at the end of December. So I'm sure I will see it at least one more time. The last time it was here at the Hippodrome, I saw it twice. So yeah. So we'll see.
So
at least one more time.
Yeah. Big fan. And then you were really high on Wicked last year.
Yes.
I was somewhere in the middle on the movie, as was Brendan. So we were like, I was more positive than not on Wicked Part 1, if that's what we're going to refer to it as.
Yeah.
But I mixed, but positive mixed is kind of where I landed. So for context, that's where we align coming into Wicked for Good. With that, I guess the only other table setting here, the Wicked superfan in my life is my wife. She's seen the stage musical a bunch of times as well. Saw the original in New York on Broadway all the way back when. Yep. So she absolutely loves it. I was going to take her to the press screening here in Miami, and my son, who has been going to a lot of them with me and has been on the podcast a few times this year, decided, you know what? I'm going instead.
Oh
and his mom, being his mom, said, okay, you can go.
Oh,
but I know deep down.
This is why I'm not a mom, because I'd be like, absolutely not. You're staying at home and I'm going.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. A lot of moms probably would have said that, but she gave in. But I do know deep down she was maybe a little, I don't know if disappointed is the right word, but maybe a little disheartened she didn't get to go. But she is very, very anxious to see it, and will
wait, so she still hasn't seen it as of right now?
She still hasn't seen it as of this recording. It was a very, very busy weekend.
Yeah.
And so she hasn't had a chance to go. But with Thanksgiving around the corner, I'm sure we will find the time very soon. But she's itching.
Nice
she's counting moments.
I know. For her child.
Yeah, that's how much she loves that little boy, Sam. But
I hope she keeps that in her back pocket for later, though. And she's like, no, you got to go see Wicked with your father before me.
That 100%. That's exactly what is going to happen.
Good for her.
It was a great time. And it was funny. Sam ended up really liking the movie a lot, but it was a bit strange because he hasn't even seen part 1.
Oh.
And he saw The Wizard of Oz, but he was 5 or 6 maybe.
Okay.
So, I mean, he was pretty young. I don't know how much of it he remembers. Sure. So he went into the movie. He mostly came to hang out. He just wanted to hang out with Dad.
Popcorn,
That's
soda.
Primarily why he was
candy.
there.
Yeah.
So without any pretext, had no idea what was going to happen, but enjoyed it nonetheless. So.
And how old is he now?
He's 10.
Okay.
He's 10 now.
Okay.
So I asked him if he was going to see Wicked Part 1 now, and he said, who knows, maybe we'll see.
Wow, he really lives on the edge. I like him.
He does. He does. All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and turn the page here. Let's talk about Wicked for Good. This is, once again, directed by Jon M. Chu. It stars Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, Jonathan Bailey, Ethan Slater, Bowen Yang, Michelle Yeoh, Jeff Goldblum, and a bunch of others that come and go throughout the film. If you're not familiar with Wicked for Good, Elphaba, the future Wicked Witch of the West, and her relationship with Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, the second of a 2-part feature film adaptation of the Broadway musical. That's what it says here. I think we all knew that, but I'm glad they clarified. Okay. Let's jump into this. Erica, I'm itching to hear your thoughts. What did you think about Wicked for Good?
So I actually re-listened to the podcast where Sean and I talked a little bit about Wicked because since then I've seen it twice more. So I've seen it 3 times total. And I feel like even my feelings have changed a little bit, even from that recording with her.
Okay.
I felt very like overwhelmed going into this film. Like, you know how when you're so excited for something and you're finally experiencing it,
Yeah.
you're not fully getting everything because you're so like, I don't want to say distracted, but you're trying to like capture all of the feelings and you just can't,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And I even like when I went the first night, so I did the Monday Amazon Prime like early screening, and I went with a
Okay.
friend of mine who's like also a super fan. And we both, as soon as it ended, we were like, we can't wait to watch it again because we know we missed so much, right? Just
Yeah.
because you're just trying to take it all in. Um,
Yeah.
like I said, I've seen it twice since then. I have noticed things I didn't pick up on the first time. I do really think, and I think a lot of Wicked fans will probably feel this way. I think there's a collective feeling that the second act of the play on stage isn't as great as the first act, right? I think everyone is in agreement with that.
Mhm.
I personally have always enjoyed the second act. I just, to me, has always felt really rushed. It's always really felt like, oh, we have to like tie this whole story up and like make everything make sense with the Wizard of Oz and like here's all the things.
Yeah.
Um, so I was excited for the film because I wanted it to give the story time to breathe and time to like expand in the way that like a film especially can do that a stage play cannot.
Yeah.
Um, and I do feel like Wicked for Good did that. Um, Shannon and I talked about this a little bit, that we both felt like there were some pacing issues in the beginning.
Mhm.
I will say, now that I've seen it 2 more times, I don't know if it's because I know, now that I know it's like, what they're doing, that I don't feel that it struggles pace-wise. I know that it does, but I didn't feel it like the second and third time around.
Okay.
But I'm aware that there's some pacing issues.
Fair
um,
enough. Yeah.
I'm aware. Um, there are some things, which I'm sure we'll get into this. I'm still struggling a little bit with how I feel about the new songs. I heard an interview with Jon M talking about Elphaba and No Place Like Home. And I feel differently now about that song than I did the first time I watched it. The Girl in the Bubble, I still don't think we need it. It kind of is the only moment in the film that I feel like it takes me out of it a little bit, because I feel like it's Ariana Grande singing and not Galinda, right?
Okay.
So that, I will say, The Girl in the Bubble is probably really the only thing that really doesn't work for me. Otherwise, like, for me, like I said, every time I've seen it, I have enjoyed it even more. The second and third time around, I've picked up on things. I've seen things of like, oh, I see the storytelling there. It's been more emotional the second and third time around.
Nice.
Um, and I think again, you just can really see how much everyone that was a part of making this film happen cares about it, which is important to me as a Wicked fan.
Yeah.
Um, I know people don't feel the same way I do, and I haven't really dove into any really negative reviews. I've just heard people saying like, "Oh, I didn't love it," or "Oh, this one was different." Not fans, like a lot of critics. So I'm interested to see what you think and hear what you think, because I know I'm very much like Galinda, right? I'm looking at it with certain eyes, right? I'm looking at it as a Wicked fan,
Yeah.
super fan, and not, I need to, I know as a critic, I should see it for what it is, but I really do think it's wonderful. Like like I said, I've loved it even more the second and third time around. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see it again. I'm sure I'll see it at least 1 or 2 more times in the theater. Um, so yeah, tell me what you think, JD.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that you liked it.
Yes.
I am happy to hear that at least super fans of the musical are walking away with satisfaction with this. I very much imagine my wife is going to love this a lot as well. I do want to reiterate, I do really like the stage musical a lot, especially that first half. It truly is fantastic. I was positive mixed on the first film, as I noted earlier, so I was curious about this. Unfortunately, I did not respond to this all that much. Part of it is the source material. You are very much right, Erica. I think we can all agree the second half of the stage play is much less compelling. That has always been the case for me as well. But I don't think Jon M. Chu does this film any favors either. Many of the same problems from Wicked last year, I do think persist here. In particular, its visual language. I just can't get over how banal it looks visually, especially when you see the behind the scenes photos. I don't know if you've seen these floating around Twitter or the internet at all, Erica, but when you see those images, the colors are incredibly vivid and evocative. There's no denying the production value and the costuming and what they were able to deliver in reality. I have no idea what they were doing with the color grading with these films, because what we see with those behind the scenes photos and what we see in the actual movie, it just does not match up at all. And I do find that profoundly disappointing. Additionally, and you noted this earlier, I agree the pacing, at least on a first watch, maybe it'll change for me on rewatches like you, but I've only seen it the one time. But I do think the pacing is uneven. I'm not sure if the original songs add anything. They feel like a shoehorned attempt at getting more Oscars. Maybe we can talk about that as well.
I agree.
But maybe Chu's biggest sin here is his storytelling. I think there are a lot of things that get lost in the shuffle. Glinda especially feels relegated to the background. Now, some of that is the material and fundamentally invoking the idea of splitting this up into two movies. I did read an interview, though, with one of the writers, Winnie Holzman, who said that, like the biggest adjustment was developing Glinda's arc after forging Alphabas in the first movie, and that Glinda is the one who needs some serious changing. That was the quote there. And if that was the attempt here, that did not work for me all that much here either. I very much felt like they were shoehorning her in wherever they could. So what we get are things like Glinda's flashbacks, which are not in the stage musical. She's also forced into the song Wonderful. They give her a wedding in an attempt to add more emotional complexity. And of course, most notably, as you alluded to there in your opening thoughts, she gets a new song here, Girl in the Bubble, which, and maybe this is also some of our disparity here, I do think that is a good moment in a vacuum. I just don't know if it has the impact it could have, because the storytelling for me is so jumbled. They added new pieces to the puzzle, but none of them seem to fit anywhere. They had this opportunity to expand on what that second act is. This film is twice as long as what the second act actually is. And I just felt like there were a lot of missed opportunities. Although another issue that I thought about in the moment, going back to Jon M. Chu's storytelling here, it's things like Elphaba and the trapped door and the lack of cogency around that. Again, if you're very familiar with the musical, we all know what's going on there. But looking at this film on its own terms, I do think that's a big issue here, especially because the note Elphaba gets from Firo, sorry, the name escaped me there for a moment. Firo. That is a pivotal moment in the musical, but Chu carelessly doesn't emphasize that at all. So when the moment comes, it's either confounding for those unfamiliar, or it doesn't have the emotional prowess it could have, which was the case for me. So if I had to boil this down to a simple phrase, I just think it's a series of missed opportunities. You had an opportunity to expand because, like you noted, the second act of the stage musical, it is a bit rushed. It's trying to tie in all these things to The Wizard of Oz, which I'm sure we can very much talk about more as well. And I was looking forward to that. I was deeply, deeply looking forward to how they could expand on that material. And I think they focus on the wrong things. And what they do attempt to do, it feels a bit jumbled. It feels somewhat careless and trying to pander to other things, such as Oscars and things of that nature. So I was unfortunately I wasn't too high on this movie.
So it's interesting because I feel like Galinda is so much more of the focus in this film. Really like showing her, and I guess I'm like comparing it to how I remember the musical in my head. Like she seems like she's so much more influential to me in the second film than she is in the musical adaptation of it. I feel like she does have a much more like influential and compelling arc in this film than in the musical. So I'm interested because I also feel like that's what so much of the talk has been, right? About how good Ariana is in this. And I feel like she has more opportunities in this film, to show herself as Glinda compared to the first film, even though in the first film, of course, there's like Popular, which is she's, super well known for, right? And just like the arrival at school, a lot of it seems like it's really about her, but I really feel like the first half is about Elphaba and defining who she is, where I feel like Galinda in the first film and then in the second film is still trying to figure out who she is. And I feel like we see so much more of that in the second film. So that I'm interested to hear you say that you feel like she's kind of put to the back.
Yeah. And I guess what I mean more is her arc. I feel like Glinda is here often, but I don't know what the film is doing with her. I just feel like she's there. I don't know what the film is doing to progress her as a character. That's really what I mean by being relegated to the background. And where they attempt to fill in those gaps is where they either contrive her into situations where she's not in the stage musical, or they're adding elements like the flashback scenes, as I mentioned earlier. So they're adding things here to fill in the gaps of what are we doing with this character, because so much of the actual progression, at least I felt, was with Elphaba. Yeah. And I do really like that element of this film for the most part. Again, I think there's some missed opportunities there as well, which we can get into, but it felt like for much of the runtime, especially the first 2/3 of it, it was, here's all of the great things, the sophisticated, complicated things happening with Elphaba. Glinda is just kind of there, sort of being tugged along. I like, as far as a progression, not much of that registered with me personally anyway, until we get to the Bubble song, which I've never heard it articulated the way that you put it, in terms of it felt like Ariana singing instead of the character. And maybe that's the case. But I felt like from a character perspective, it was the one moment that did register with me as, okay, this is really her wrestling with her identity in a real way that I felt. It was the first moment in the film where it felt like we were getting beneath the surface with the character. In this iteration, I loved what they do with her in Wicked, and what we saw in part 1. But this just felt like she was floating through a lot of it. No pun intended. Yeah. Or pun intended, maybe.
Right. Exactly. Well, and, the girl in the bubble scene was interesting for me too, because that moment when she has the reflective, where she's seeing herself as a child, just the way that Alphaba saw herself as a child when she was falling, which was also not a thing in the stage play, in the stage musical. I thought that was interesting, and I was like, oh, okay, well, they had to have that scene of her as a child earlier to mirror the,
to make sense of that. Yeah,
exactly. Which I was like, okay, like I see what they're doing there. But again, I do agree with you that I believe, and I've talked about this, and we've talked about this, musicals especially are good and impactful when the song is pushing the story forward.
Yes.
The Girl in the Bubble, I don't feel like it does that well.
Interesting.
I don't think I don't know if it's like the time where it happens, maybe, is why I don't feel like it's as impactful. Okay. I do agree with you that like that is her moment where she's realized, okay, I do have to change here. I have to step out of my Galinda bubble comfort zone, right? But again, I don't know if it's because it felt like Ariana singing to me is why it took me out of it. Maybe because it wasn't like, she's so good at being Galinda, right? That I know the Galinda that has been created on stage, where I feel like Cynthia takes Alphaba and like makes her own. I think the way Ariana shines is playing that Galinda character the way I want her to be, like so much like the stage musical Galinda, but times 10. And I don't know if that's also what took me out of it. It was like, this is so foreign. Like, it feels so foreign. I don't know. I just didn't, I feel like now that I've seen it another time, and now that I've seen the interview with Jon M too, talking about No Place Like Home, I think that makes more sense, and I'm fine with that staying in the film. I think The Girl in the Bubble could be taken out, and the film wouldn't change.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I definitely do feel differently. I mean, I'm not all that high on the film overall anyway, but the Glinda character for me, I just feel like is just there. I don't think she's adding much to the film outside of that moment. And I think without it, what she brings to the end of the film especially feels contrived and shoehorned to me. Now, again, some of this is also the source material, because all of this is rushed and thinly veiled in the stage play as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I just come down to this being a series of missed opportunities, because there was ample time for them to do more with Glinda, aside from giving her this pseudo wedding that really becomes a moment about Alphaba anyway.
Yeah.
Or these brief flashback scenes that I don't think, like, it's a visual payoff later. That's really all that they're used for. And we never really get those meaty, juicy, dramatic, poetic moments that we get in part one that are really great. And I do think Ariana Grande is very good here. I just don't think the material is giving her all that much to do. They're just forcing her into these situations because we have to have Ariana Grande in the film more, is what it felt like to me.
I felt like it was really interesting and a really good point that you brought up, the choice for them to make to swap it being Alphaba singing Wonderful, as now in the film it's Glinda, which is really interesting. It was funny because in my first showing, I was like, this feels off. Why does this feel off? And I'm sitting there and I'm like,
because it's not a duet anymore.
Linda doesn't sing this in the play. Like,
no, she's not in that scene.
Yeah. But I do, and I watched like an interview with Jon M too, talking about that too, and he kind of touched on like how it kind of made more. I think he said, I'm wishing I remember exactly what he said now, so don't quote me on this. But what I remember from it is like him saying that it really ties into Glenda's thing of like that she can like make this work but she can only see the one way she can make it work, right? Like as if she like smooths everything over with Alphaba and the wizard, right? So I do get it from that angle of like storytelling, that it really is Glinda trying to like convince Alphaba to make everything okay. And it is the only moment that, you know, the wizard is really truthful with Alphaba. Like, sure, you can try to tell everyone, but no one's going to believe you because they don't want to. They want to believe that I'm this magical figure that they can believe in, right?
Yeah.
So he's basically saying like, you can try to do it your way, but it's not going to work. And I do feel like that's why him and Glinda singing it together does kind of make more sense to me in that side of the storytelling, right?
Yeah, I agree. That's where, again, I struggle with the film because I don't like, one thing Brendan and I come on here and we talk about this often is that we try to discuss, praise, criticize a film for what it is, not what we want it to be. And I have never been more challenged than with this film, because I feel like my criticisms are, yes, they are tailored to what I'm seeing on the screen, and much of it comes down to the visuals and the pacing and some of the craft that we see with the film, the storytelling more specifically. But I look at the writing and I just feel like there are missed opportunities because I don't know what they're doing with Glinda. And then you're shoehorning her into these moments that undermine what the film could be emphasizing. And again, maybe you are right about Girl in the Bubble. Maybe what I'm latching on to there is she's such a thinly written character in this iteration that we're finally scratching beneath that. And that's what I loved about it. But when you're also putting her in all these places, you know, wonderful certainly being quintessential to the argument as well, because that's such a pivotal moment for Alphaba and her convictions as it relates to the wizard. And these films, and this has certainly been a talking point for a lot of people that are not connecting with this film, especially once we get to the Wizard of Oz tie-ins, as far as the immense amount of empathy that they give to Alphaba. And there is a lot of empathy to be had with that character. And I love what Cynthia Erivo brings to that character. And so when you have, and you denote these convictions with Alphaba, and we understand the psychology behind her choices and why she feels indignant and cheated and all of that. There's lots of cogency to it, especially going back to the first Wicked. But even in this film, in the first half, those convictions are still palpable. But once we get to the back half of the film and those convictions start to waver a little bit, and she starts to make plans as far as moving away from Oz, that's where things become a bit muddled for me. And some of it is the writing around Alphaba herself and where that goes, even though some of it is really great. And I do want to talk about her scenes with Jonathan Bailey, because I do think they're really good here. Those are some of my favorite moments of the film. But I think the storytelling at large just leaves a little bit to be desired. And I think it's a result of them not knowing how to expand this material. And what they do is contrive scenes, situations with Glinda that then leave little time to explore with Alphaba and why she makes the choices that she does. Because ultimately the turn doesn't really work for me here either. It doesn't really work for me in the stage play, to be fair. But when you have an extra hour and a half, or at least an extra hour to expand on that, again, I come back to missed opportunities and what they could have done with this film, and with, like, because I just feel like there are a lot of complexities there when you think about Elphaba, who she is, the choices she makes, and the variation of that character in The Wizard of Oz. It just feels like to me there was an opportunity to have your cake and eat it too, and instead I feel like the film completely fumbled that. I don't know if that makes sense, but
I get what you're saying, because I even made the comment to Shadon that it felt like it felt like there was so much traveling in this, like actual traveling, which I love, because I love getting to see Elphaba fly. Obviously in the stage musical, there's only that one big defying gravity moment, which we all love. So I love the traveling moments in this, but I do feel like it takes a lot away, a lot of time, I think. And I do love it. I'm battling with it because I love, again, us getting to see that like world that Elphaba's been living in the woods, like, which is something that we don't get in the stage musical, right? Like, I love that. I love being able to like build out that part. I feel like they focused on building out the physical world so much more in this than they did the content, if that makes sense. Sure. And I think that's what you're trying to get at, is that they spent their time building out the like physical visual world and like the travel between the places in Oz as opposed to developing more of the story and the characters and doing that with writing.
Exactly. Especially when you think about the Wicked Witch of the West in the context of the Wizard of Oz. There is a huge discrepancy between the two characters. Now, I understand fundamentally that this is acting as fan fiction. That's ultimately what it is. And there's been so much discourse on this over the last few days as far as how to judge this material. And I'm typically not one that needs everything to be seamless as far as what we're seeing in this film, how it relates to The Wizard of Oz. It doesn't have to be verbatim 100%. Typically, right. I'm not always looking for that. However, I do feel like with this film, it is trying to have its cake and eat it too. And that's where I do have, again, maybe not an issue, but I just go back to, I feel like there is a missed opportunity because it is acting as a fan fiction, but you are invoking specific iconography from The Wizard of Oz so that audiences are familiar with where you're going. They don't get too confused. They don't have to do as much work. So you are exploiting the familiar in an attempt to have your cake and eat it too, as it relates to Elphaba and the choices that she makes there at the end. And I don't think that they're able to fully capitalize on the cruelty of that character in The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
With the empathy we see with Elphaba in these Wicked movies. They're huge disparity. And I do think there's a version of this where you strip down so much of the plot and the mechanics there, and to your point, the world building. You strip that down and you simply emphasize this as a character study. And again, this is where, and I will fully admit, this is where I'm getting too far into this is what I want versus what it is. But I just feel like, and I couldn't help but think about this as I was watching it, how can you remedy that discrepancy? Where can you find that middle ground? And I do think there's a version where you can have your cake and eat it too, where you can have us empathize with Elphaba because of everything she went through at school and how people have treated her, how toxic the system has become, And again, that's what's so interesting about her moment with the wizard halfway through this film, because she realizes that there really is no hope in all of this. And she gives up on her convictions in many regards. So she decides to play her role. I would have really wanted a movie that was very much all about that. I want a, if I had legs, I'd kick you version of that. Like a Die My Love version of that, because to go from those strong convictions and someone that we know is on the right side of history to being this cruel witch that does all those things to Dorothy and her friends. Live. That and look, again, the stage version of this doesn't do a great job with that either. So it's not just this film. But again, you had an opportunity here. You had an extra hour plus to maybe do something with that. And again, that's just where I think the writers here and Jon M. Chu, they just get too caught up in the extracurriculars instead of the meat on the bone, if you will.
Well, and Elphaba's our hero, right? And this, where in The Wizard of Oz, she's not. She's the enemy. Like, how do you feel about No Good Deed? Do you feel like that isn't enough of her admitting, like, okay, I'm going to be wicked now? And we do see a really tiny little brief moment where she's yelling at Dorothy about the shoes, and she's captured her and put her in the, and I know that that's not enough too, because at the same time, there's that joke and that meme of like Dorothy listening to Elphaba and Glinda have this like beautiful friendship moment when they're singing for good, right? So it's like two sides of the coin, right? But I do think Cynthia blew me away with No Good Deed in this film.
Oh, it's
oh my God. Yeah. Like, I think that is so much more impactful than it is on the stage. Again, the beautiful medium of film that allows, again, so much of that to build out the way that she's flying when she's singing it, the monkeys around her, like just all of it is just like so breathtaking. I feel like she sings it with so much more conviction than any of the stage musicals I've seen. And again, I saw it with Adina, right? But there's just something that you can't capture on stage that you can capture in film with that I think was so impactful of her. Like, it's like all the monkeys are behind her. And I don't know. I do feel like that is their way of saying like she is wicked now. I agree with you that she's still we still have empathy for her and sympathy for her throughout the rest of the film. She is our hero in this, right? Like, Galinda's not the hero. Elphaba's the hero. So I totally see what you're saying if you're looking at it just through the eyes of how The Wizard of Oz portrays the Wicked Witch.
Look, I love the number, and you are right. She sings the ever living hell out of it. I just am not able to convince myself of the turn, because they do give her this immense amount of empathy that as she starts to relish in her despair, I don't think the film allows her disillusionment to to render the flawed characteristics to make sense of, again, the cruelty that would follow. But again, that's where I also go back to the perspective of, is this a tie-in to The Wizard of Oz, or is this just a series of fan fiction?
Yeah.
I think some of that comes down to your perspective there as well. If you don't see it as canon and it's just another retelling of this story, I think there's a lot more to forgive there, especially because of how good that number is. But you are invoking something very specific as it relates to The Wizard of Oz. You are not trying to separate yourself from that movie. You're not.
Right.
So
well, and
that's where I have, like, I have an issue with the film trying to have its cake and eat it too. I would forgive it more if it was its own adaptation. And again, it's not just this film, it's the stage musical. Again, I'm lumping that together. But if Jon M. Chu decided, you know what, we're going to do Wicked, but we're going to adapt this in our own way that is separate, that kind of panders to the fan fiction element, then fine. I think I could buy it more, especially with how the musical simply is a musical and acts as a musical, and it doesn't necessarily have to have all of its I's dotted and T's crossed in terms of connective tissue. But when you get so close to the iconography that that's where having your cake and eat it too just doesn't really work for me. And again, it's not just the number itself. The number I do think is good, to your point. It's leading up to it. I don't know if they emphasize that the flawed characteristics that could be there in the character, because she is our hero. We don't really see those flawed characteristics that would give credence to, okay, now I'm this Wicked Witch of the West that is going to be super cruel, and I'm going to even light the Scarecrow on fire, which is a whole nother element in itself. And look, I'm not trying to get too bogged down in that.
No.
I don't have an issue with some of those disparities as much as it is the general psychological, emotional turn from I'm the hero to I'm now truly this wicked witch, that it's really hard for me to buy that.
I totally see what you're saying. And I think to Wicked's disadvantage, right, is the fact that it does like Wicked Part 2, Wicked for Good, second act of the musical, however way you want to look at it, all of it lines up with The Wizard of Oz, right? Like there is overlapping timeline. And I think that is the biggest problem overall with the whole story. So listening to you talk, I was thinking like, oh, I would love to have seen like, what is that cut of Wicked for Good where, the Tin Man doesn't, or, Bach doesn't turn into the Tin Man, right?
Yeah.
And I even was thinking about you too, saying that where it's like, we have, again, because Elphaba is our hero. Sorry, I have so many thoughts in my head right now.
I love it.
Because Elphaba is our hero, when she turns Bach into the Tin Man, that seems really evil, but it's like, we know that in our minds, she was saving his life. The same with Fiyero, right? Of like, she turned him into a scarecrow, but we know our beloved Elphaba was doing good and saving his life. And this is truly what I love so much about Wicked, is that 15-year-old Erica saw it and was like, I need to change the way I look at things, everything, right? Like give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there was a reason why they did something a certain way. Maybe there was an explanation behind certain decisions, why people make certain decisions and why they do what they do, right? So I do love that messaging side of Wicked and these elements that we're talking about, but I do think it is a disadvantage to the story because, like you're saying, what we've known for so long, the iconic The Wizard of Oz film, it doesn't exactly line up, even though the storylines do line up.
Yeah.
So,
and that could just be a fundamental issue with the source material, with the stage play, because it is acting as a prequel of sorts, but then it wants to line up with The Wizard of Oz. And again, I think that's where you just have to pick a lane as far as we're going to act as fan fiction or it's going to be a different adaptation. It's not going to be The Wizard of Oz. But the moment you start invoking specific images from that film that is so famous, and you're doing that as not to confuse audiences. You're doing that so they don't have to do harder work. Right. You want them to be with your characters and the emotions that you're aiming for. So on one level, I do get it, but the moment you start doing that, then you have to start thinking about connective tissue in a way that is going to make sense of this story.
Yeah.
And generally, I love the idea of Wicked. Like the general philosophy that it is aiming for from a storytelling perspective is great. But we know generally that she's going to end up as the Wicked Witch of the West. Again, how we define that is kind of up in the air. And is that a fault of the source material? I think so. But to Jon M. Chu, like, again, to point back to him, bro, you had an extra hour and a half to bring clarity to that here. That is the great thing about turning this into a film adaptation and splitting it into two parts. And I just don't think that was ever top of mind here for him or the writers to really expand and give credence to that. So through most of this film, for Wicked for Good, she's still the empathetic, lovable character that we have cherished since the very beginning of all of this. And then because of one song, she's going to recoil and let go of her convictions that she was fighting so evidently for. And now she's just going to embrace the role of because now she's got plans to leave Oz. Like it makes sense logically. For me, it's not a cohesion thing in that regard. It's more of an emotional. I don't like it. The payoff doesn't make sense given what you did to explore that character. And I do feel like there's a version of this where you can have your cake and eat it too, where you can give us that empathetic, lovable character, but then also give us the fundamental what happened and here's how she ended up being so evil and cruel in the end. And that there is a level of heartbreak to that. And we've seen many villain stories throughout the years kind of take that approach. And I think, you know, again, getting deep into that psychology is where the films that have done that the best, that's been the blueprint. And this film didn't really care to do any of that. And I think that's ultimately my problem with it. Like as a musical, as an adaptation of Wicked, I can understand the appeal. I think that's where there is a lot to like. And I'm not necessarily downplaying that, but it felt like this was on autopilot instead of trying to do something inspired. And maybe that's ultimately why I was disappointed.
I totally hear you. I think as a Wicked super fan and as big as the fandom is, I don't think they would have ever been able to actually change any of it. Because as much as we love to complain about the second act of Wicked, I don't think people would be happy if they changed it. But however,
and sorry, just real fast, I guess just to be specific about that, like, I guess I'm not asking for them to change where things go in the end from a plotting perspective.
Okay.
That's all fine. Because, you know, like the trapdoor, all of that, again, I think there's a lack of cogency with that element here because I think Jon M. Chu gets caught up into other things. But I don't have an issue with that as much as it is, again, how are we tying this to the Wizard of Oz? Because this is who the character is in the Wizard of Oz.
Well,
and if we are connected, or are we not connecting it? And that's fine too. Again, I'm just asking the film to pick a lane, but the images, when we get to the Wizard of Oz tie-ins, those images are not ambiguous. And I think because of that, it feels like Jon M. Chu, much like the stage musical in a lot of ways, is trying to have its cake and eat it too. So I think there's a version of this where either you just remove the familiar iconography and you just kind of become your own thing, or you make sense of why she wants to become, you know, again, this evil, wicked witch.
Right.
And then I'm leaving Oz altogether. Or maybe not even evil or wicked, but just like that might be the wrong phrase. Maybe the right words here are, again, that disillusionment. The idea that there's no way for her to beat the system.
Hmm.
And that I still think that's powerful, especially given the world we live in today.
Right.
I would not blame anybody for falling into those traps. And I think that's why the musical can, or that idea anyway, is still very powerful.
Yeah.
But I like, again, that disillusionment is still, it feels contrived to me in the end.
Yeah. It's funny because hearing your perspective, I think about like, okay, so I watched The Wizard of Oz for the first time in a very long time this past year.
Okay.
Gave it a rewatch. And maybe it's just because I'm such like a super fan of Wicked and Elphaba that I looked at the Wicked Witch differently. I was like, we didn't know her story yet. Like, if she is this like big evil, again, I think the story of Wicked is all about image and how things are perceived and how we like think we understand things. Because I looked at the Wicked Witch and Glinda in The Wizard of Oz. I looked at them totally differently after having seen Wicked in all of its forms, right?
Yeah.
Where I think what you're saying is like, we can't not respect what the Wicked Witch was in The Wizard of Oz by making her what she is in Wicked.
Yeah, I just want to know what that bridge is. Like I like fundamentally, like the film, the musical, it tries to offer an explanation. I just don't think it's enough given the character that we see in The Wizard of Oz. And that's where I go back to, are we tying this to the movie The Wizard of Oz? Is it canon or is it not canon? I just think it has to pick a lane. And that's ultimately the problem I have with the source material.
Right.
Because, like, again, the idea of it, I am very much on board with, for sure.
You have a problem with the
I just have a really hard time seeing, especially the film version of that character and what Cynthia Erivo brings to it. And I cannot reiterate enough. She is fan-freaking-tastic. She's very, very good.
Yeah.
But they give her so much empathy and credence to her convictions that the turn to that is way too jarring.
Well, and not to be this person, but I'm going to for a second. Just the whole like concept and theory and like, culture of witches, right? Like if we're going all the way back, right? It was just women being different, standing up for themselves. And like, if you've been to Salem or you've learned about the Salem witch trials, a lot of times it was children just like running around being crazy, right? Which we realize that is what children do now. Okay. And they must be a witch, right? Or even like anyone who just stood up and said something different than what anyone was thinking. And, women who weren't married and didn't have children and, all this thing of like, well, it's witchcraft. It must be witches and all of that, right? I do think it's still playing to that original concept of a witch, right? That this is someone who is not, accepted in society and, all of those things. Now, to bring it all the way back to this, right? I guess what I'm getting at is that I still think we can look at the Wicked Witch and the Wizard of Oz and think now that like maybe she was a little misunderstood. I don't know. Maybe I'm really stretching here. Maybe I'm really pulling at strings. But I think that is the overall message here, right?
Again, I understand the idea, but I think what's funny, and maybe I have done a horrible job of articulating what I'm trying to say. I don't know. But as you were talking there about the witches of Salem being misunderstood, wrongfully accused, all those sort of things, when I tailor that back to how I feel about Elphaba and then who the character is in The Wizard of Oz, it's like wrongfully accusing and misunderstanding all those witches in Salem, but then also they turned out to be a real witch who was cruel and just gave credence to all those things. So it's like those people were right the whole time, which is why it's funny to me. Because you're right. I mean, it makes sense of why they would become cruel, I guess, but I feel like it's.
I totally agree with you, though, what you're saying. Like, there is no connection really other than no good deed that we would even look at her and say, like, oh, yeah, she really, truly did become evil. Yeah. And I do look at Elphaba Wicked and Elphaba, or, the Wicked Witch of the West and Wizard of Oz as two completely separate things, right? Like,
and that's totally fair. Yeah.
Right.
And that,
I think that what you're saying is that's what the issue is. And if you're going to reference it and overlap timelines, it's got to tie in more, which I don't disagree.
And that's 100% it. You articulated it perfectly. Like that, like I have no issue with this film living in its own canon. None whatsoever. I just feel like it wants to do that, but also be like, hey, you know that movie over there you really love? We're going to bring that in here too. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, now you're just confusing me.
Right.
Like
no, I totally get what you're saying.
Like, that's it. Like, pick a lane. That's all I'm asking for. Yeah. And in addition to that, I do think the film would have perhaps benefited from really digging into those nuances as it relates to Elphaba's disillusionment, why she feels like there's no way of beating the system, so I'm just leaving. I'm taking my ball and going home. And again, I think that idea is extremely poignant. And in a way I do like that enough here because of the relationship between Elphaba and Fiyero. Like all of that, I wish they would have focused more on the note. That is kind of important. I feel like they overlook that a little bit. But aside from that, like that moment when, like after Dorothy arrives with the house and he comes down to save her, and and then she flies away, and you get that great close up on Jonathan Bailey. Great moment. Really like that a lot. Like that element of the film was effective enough for me. So
much heart there. So much heart. Yes. I think from both Fiyero and Glinda, like you can tell there was like real and again, this is where a film can bring you in close where a stage play can't, right? To show you that emotion. And I agree with you. I think Jonathan Bailey also is fantastic. And I do love, I know you mentioned this earlier, we haven't talked about it, how good the scenes with Elphaba and Fiyero are, because I think those scenes are so good.
I literally had ladies howling in my theater during the sex moment.
Yeah, I was one of them.
Losing their mind.
You could hear me all the way up here in Baltimore. I was one of them. And it was so funny because on my third showing, right, I went with different people every time. And the third showing that I went to, my friend was like, could not believe they took it that far. And I was over there like, yeah. And she's like, oh my God, like kids are going to see this. And I'm thinking kids see way worse things like everywhere. But I get like, it was just so funny, but I love that they went there because again, in the stage musical, you don't get that. You get a very passionate, real moment with them on stage, but it's nothing like what it is in the film.
Yeah. No, I thought that was effective in cementing that relationship and how genuine that was, because
they're in love.
For Glinda, there's like, she is caught off guard by it. So that it has to be sincere. It has to come off genuine for Glinda's reaction to have that emotionality behind it. And that element of the film, I think that works really well here. It really, my only nitpick is the note as it relates to the trapdoor at the end. I do think that wasn't handled great here, but everything else I do think is wonderful. And in the middle of all of that, if I had to, again, go back to that idea of missed opportunities here with Elphaba especially, because right before that moment when she's about to be arrested by those guards, she, of course, gets to the house there and has a moment of goodbye to her sister, which I like. It was emotionally flat for me. And one of those moments where between her moment with the wizard and how that just cements home further, like her antagonism toward her. I don't know if that's the right word, but like the way that she is just opposing forces with the wizard, does not buy into his lies at all, and wants to change Oz as a result. So that between that moment and this moment with her sister, which could have embedded some of this emotional complexity in the character, I feel like that is also a bit overlooked as well. It just felt like the film was wanting to get to the moment with Firo as quickly as possible, even though in the middle of all of that is a weird sword fight, a witch sword fight. I don't know how necessary that was either.
That actually does happen in the musical. They have
and it does.
Yeah.
No,
it's way more elaborate in the film, but yeah.
Yes. Again, just going back to storytelling choices and how we can emphasize complexity in Alphaba to give credence to this turn that's eventually going to happen. It just felt like the film was stepping on its toes a little bit. But I bit hard on this film, so I at least wanted to note that all the stuff with Jonathan Bailey I thought was gold.
Yeah, he's so good.
He's really good. And again, if I had to criticize anything with Firo here, it's not his performance. It's more so maybe some of the CGI at the end of the film. And really, I bring that up because, again, there's photos going around that they had done the practical work there. So, I don't know why they needed to CGI up as much as they did when the behind the scenes practicality looked convincing for the most part.
I was going to say, I heard that it was practical, that they didn't use CGI.
Yeah. So I don't know what that disparity is there. But again, in terms of the visualizations of this film, I don't have a clue what they were thinking.
Did you, I know we talked about this last time too. Did you see it in Dolby, IMAX? What did you see it in?
IMAX, yeah. They did the press screening in the IMAX, yeah.
Yeah, I saw it in Dolby, and then when I went, I saw it in Dolby twice, and then when I went the third time, the only screening we could do was just a digital one. And I will say it was a different experience.
Yeah.
And even so, my friend noted, she was like, I think it looks different from than the first film. So she thought it looked different. And I didn't want to say it looks completely different and better on Dolby, but it does, in my perspective.
Yeah, I didn't love how they, I don't love the visual effects, but I will say that is nitpicky. That is not a lofty criticism here. It's only relevant because I've seen the behind the scenes and they did a lot of practical work. Right. I don't think that the CGI was all that necessary. Maybe if you wanted to enhance to make the eyes and the lips more seamless with the mask. Okay. I could see them doing some digital makeup there, but it felt like they overdid it when the practical stuff was more than effective. It seemed so. Yeah. That's just, again, nitpicky stuff. When it comes to when it comes to the emotion and the character work there, that was effective, and that was honestly most important, I think. Regarding that specific dynamic.
Right.
I did want to ask you about Michelle Yeoh. A lot of people have been saying that she is miscast here. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, and I love her. I think she's fantastic. I think she is wonderful at being Madame Marble. I think where she's miscast for me, and I hate to say this, but it's the musical moments, the singing moments. It just is and not even that she sounds bad. She sounds hesitant. She sounds like she doesn't even believe in her singing. And That's my issue with it. I think she's phenomenal at like that evil, like at the,
Yeah.
you know, when she's yelling at Glinda and all of those moments. I think I think she's like chef's kiss in those moments.
Yeah.
I just wish she didn't seem so not confident in her own singing abilities.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to add to that. I echo that 100%. She's great. I love Michelle Yeoh, and she is good in the dramatic moments here.
Yes, so good.
Yeah, it's just the musical element. Oh, it's
quite
not good.
frankly, I feel the same way about Jeff Goldblum. Like, I don't think
that's fair. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like everyone's talking about Michelle Yeoh, but I'm like, no one's talking about him, and I feel the same exact way as him.
Yeah.
I think he's great as the wizard. I don't think his singing is up to par either. Like,
I don't disagree.
And I feel like it's hesitant and held back the same way I feel about Michelle Yeoh. And, you know, not to play the whole witch of everything, but everyone's just talking about the woman. And I think Jeff Goldblum is the same way.
Yeah, how is he getting away?
Exactly.
From all that? Yeah.
Exactly. I just scared my cat. My cat is like, what's going on? But truly, that's how I feel about it. I'm like, why are we only criticizing her?
That that is very fair. It is a bit strange that only Michelle Yeoh is getting that criticism, and Jeff Goldblum equally is deserving of the same exact criticism.
You and I both know why, JD. We both know why.
We know. No, I get it. Totally get it. And again, I just keep going back to your argument and what you brought up with the Salem witches. Like, I very much love what this is going for. I really do. Yeah. I think that's just why the idea of the missed opportunity and why I go into those waters I typically don't of what I would have preferred here. Just because I think there is a version of this that truly is great, that exceeds anything that we could have asked for with this movie. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I just think it's more on autopilot. I
think autopilot's a great way to describe it, but at the same time, like, I love it. But I totally get what you're saying. I totally see what you're saying.
I do want to shout out the Cowardly Lion in this, maybe more so because some of the TikToks I've seen in the aftermath of this film's release have been incredible.
Specifically with Coleman Domingo's Cowardly Lion?
Yeah, and it's less his performance. It's just the general idea of he was saved as a cub, and because he was saved and didn't, I guess, have any sort of challenges in his life, that's why he's against Alphaba. People
it's
have
very
been
weak.
have taken.
It's very weak. Yeah,
it is weak. Yeah. And again, that's not just this film; it's the source material as well. But the memes and the jokes that come out of it have been pretty funny, though.
I need to look this up. I haven't seen anything. I'm also not on TikTok, so that's probably.
I'll have to send you one that I saw earlier today that was especially very, very good.
Please do. I actually have been seeing some funny ones with. We've been talking about a lot of this in the podcast, right? The Wizard of Oz version of the characters, and there was like, you know, a screen grab, and it was like the Tin Man and the Scarecrow like talking, and Dorothy was there, and it was like, should we tell her we went to college together?
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So there are some really good funny memes that
or like people have been pointing out that in The Wizard of Oz, the witch sets the Scarecrow on fire multiple times, which again, very funny in the context of Wicked. Or the idea of them going in front of the wizard almost childishly, I need these gifts, and they buy into that in The Wizard of Oz. But again, in the context of Wicked, half those characters know that he's a fraud.
Right.
But they just buy it anyway.
Right.
Again, that's where like the tie-ins to The Wizard of Oz, they don't make sense. That's not my criticism of the movie.
Yeah.
Mostly, it just comes back to pick a lane. Like, do you want this to be a tie-in? Because if it is a direct tie-in, boy, there are a lot of disparities we have to clean up.
Right.
But if it's not, if it wants to be its own thing, that's fine. But it needs to be that, and it just doesn't commit to being its own thing. And that's the issue.
I get what you're saying. I would love to see that version of it being its own thing. I would love to see that, honestly.
The winged monkeys are awesome, though.
I'm sure you've been seeing a lot of the talk about the monkey that stole Glinda's jacket in the first one and how he's wearing it in the second, in For Good, how he's wearing it. Have you seen this?
I haven't. But
oh my gosh, I have to send it. I have to send it to you. It's definitely a little Easter egg for the fans that one of the monkeys is wearing her jacket, the one who stole it in the first.
Yeah, that's funny.
So, I have to send that. I'll send that to you. It's good. It's good.
Good stuff. Do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I know we talked about this earlier. I can't believe, it's like, oh, we had to wait a whole year, and I can't believe, now it's like Wicked both of them are out, and we've seen them both. And as much as I love Wicked, again, I hope they don't milk it and try to just money grab everything. But I think you're right, JD. I think they will. I hope it's good if they're going to do that. I'm scared. I don't know.
Coming 2027, Burr the Cowardly Lion, the prequel. So be on the lookout for that.
I do. I just thank you so much for letting me come on and gush about how much I love it. Truly, absolutely. It is like one of the things that defines me as a person, and I just love it so much. So I appreciate, and it was very good. I think we had a lovely conversation. Yeah, and we got loud once. I think that's good. But truly, thank you for letting me come on and
absolutely
chat with you
always great to have you here. To hear you gush about it. I'm sorry that I had to rain on your parade a little bit, but
your points were valid. Your points were valid, most of them.
Yeah, I thought it was a very, very, very good conversation.
Yeah,
went back and forth, figured some stuff out, and I am with you. I hope, all joking aside, really hope they leave this alone.
Yeah,
but
you're right. Though see. They probably won't.
They probably will. They probably will. And we'll have you back, and we'll criticize that one as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. No, I am excited. I do feel like this week is like the week that movies really start coming out. I'm excited. Like, I'm going to try to see as much as I can over the next couple of weeks. Yeah. So Running Man, Eternity's coming out. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I had fun with that one.
Yeah, lots of good stuff. So
I know it's crazy busy time.
Yep.
I'm Critics' Choice, and our nominations are December 3rd, something like that.
Yeah.
And we have to do the first round of voting. So yeah, this next week is like super crunch time.
Yeah.
lots of movies to watch.
What happened to this year? Like, I can't believe we're here, but we're here.
It's almost done already. It's wild.
I know.
Before you go, where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm at eRock Reviews on Twitter. Letterboxd. I feel like I never talk about Letterboxd, but I love Letterboxd. Find me there. Yeah. Also at eRock Reviews. I love Letterboxd. I love to see what people are watching. Honestly, my favorite thing to do after I see any movie, I go to log it, and then I go to read the reviews.
Yeah,
like the highest rate, like the most liked reviews, and they're so funny. Like,
they're very often
they're
funny.
They're always hilarious, and I can't wait to read them. And then on Instagram, I'm just eRock114. And that's it. I don't really do any other social media. So
all right. And you can find Erica on Chasing the Gold.
Of course.
As well.
Yeah.
Every week, which is very exciting. So
yes.
I guess on that note, real quick, over under Oscar nominations for Wicked.
Okay, so Sean and I talked about this a little bit. I think we estimated 12.
12?
Yeah, wow. Because we said the same 10 as before. Wait, it was 10 before, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then
so you think this is going to get more?
Yeah, because I think like we were talking about with the songs, I think they'll both get nominated, potentially. And then we also talked about it getting a casting nomination too, which I think it very much could. So maybe 12 or 13, depending on how you square it.
See, and that's interesting because we were kind of middling on these films or on the songs, excuse me, the new songs. Now you said you came around on the Alphaba one, more on the rewatches.
Yeah.
I don't know if we are a microcosm for how a lot of people feel, or if maybe we're against the grain there. I don't know. But I have always said, I think it's wild that K-pop Demon Hunters is only going for the one nomination, because I think
Right.
they could genuinely get 3.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. But I think, again, we have to think about how the way the Academy thinks. And I think they're just going to be like, oh, yeah, Wicked. Oh, yeah. You know, like.
Yeah, they're just going to knock him down. Because you gotta assume Sinners is going to be a big player in that as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think I know K-pop feels like they have a legit contender, and so they're just all in on Golden. And I totally get it. But I also feel like they could at least get 2, if not more than that.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. At any rate, appreciate you joining me for this conversation. It was a lot of fun. So fun. We will have another review this week as well. Brennan is going to join me for If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. We're going to be diving into that one. I know Train Dreams just came out this last weekend as well. We have both seen that. However, we are planning on bringing Eric Anderson in for that conversation, and he was not available this last weekend. So we're going to talk about that next week on the show.
I just watched that right before we started recording. I just watched that.
Yeah. Big fan. Really like that one a lot.
Yeah, it was good.
So we'll give that one a full review with Eric next week. So those will be our 2 reviews this week, and then the main show coming out this probably Wednesday or Thursday. I don't know. With Thanksgiving this week, I don't know what the schedule is going to look like, to be honest. It's all up in the air. But a new Women in Session should come out at the end of the week, and then a new Chasing the Gold, speaking of, at the beginning of next week, next Monday. So a lot happening. Be on the lookout for all of that. Thanks, Erica, for joining me once again. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time on the In Session Film Podcast.